Hey friends, I am Jackson. Welcome back to Jackson English Stories. If this is your first time here, I am really glad you found this video. And if you have been with me for a while, thank you for being part of this journey. This channel is all about real English, not the kind you memorize. Not the kind you fake to sound smart, but the kind you feel, the kind you live. The kind that stays with you after the video ends. Actually, before we go deeper, can I ask you something? Where are you right now? Are you on the subway? Sitting at your desk? Lying in bed with one earbud in? And what time is it where you are? Morning? Afternoon? 2 a.m.? Leave a comment. Seriously, I love reading your answers. I am genuinely curious. When and where do you choose to learn? I read every one of them, and it helps me feel like we are really connected. Okay? Now let us talk about something that might sound familiar. You ever have that moment where someone says something in English and you get it? You understand every word. You know what they mean. But when it is your turn to speak, you hesitate. You freeze. You know what you want to say, but somehow it feels like you are translating your own feelings. That was me. For years, I read books, watched movies, passed tests. People even said, "Wow, your English is great." But inside, I knew the truth. I was not thinking in English. I was processing English. Like a machine, input, output, I understood. Then I translated, then I spoke, and by the time I finished thinking, the moment was already gone. You ever feel that? Like you are standing in front of someone, maybe a stranger, a friend, a coworker, and you know the answer. You know the words. But your brain is still stuck in traffic. You are not slow. You are not bad at English. You are just stuck in between understanding English and living in it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched a full English movie and understood it all, but then someone asks you, "What was it about?" And suddenly, your brain goes blank? Yeah, that is the space we are talking about. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Understanding is not enough. And you know what makes it harder? The more you study, the more you might be training your brain to translate, not think. I know it sounds backwards, but it is true. The more I focused on learning vocabulary, mastering grammar, memorizing phrases, the more I spoke like a robot, not a person. I sounded smart, but not real. And I knew, if I wanted to sound natural, I had to do something different. Not study harder. But think differently. That is what this video is about, not tricks. Not magic formulas, just 15 truths that changed how I experience English. That helped me stop thinking like a student and start thinking like a native, even though I never lived abroad. And I want to share all of them with you. But before we go to the next part, I have a question. Have you ever had a moment when you understood everything, but still could not speak? Like your brain knew the answer, but your mouth could not find the words? If yes, leave a comment. Tell me about it. Also, remind me again, where are you watching this from and what time is it? I am seriously curious. That stuff matters to me. Because this video is not just a story, it is a conversation, and we are just getting started. Now, let us begin with the first truth, and trust me, it might be the exact opposite of what you have always believed. I used to think native speakers were perfect. I mean, seriously, I thought they spoke in complete sentences, always used correct grammar, always said exactly what they meant, no hesitation, no filler words, no mistakes. So I tried to copy that. I tried to speak like a textbook. Clean, precise, structured. But then, something happened. I moved to a new city and started working with people from different countries, including native English speakers, and I realized something that completely shocked me. Native speakers mess up all the time. They repeat words, they start sentences, and do not finish them. They say like and you know every 5 seconds. They interrupt themselves. They invent words. They forget grammar rules. And guess what? No one cares. Not even them. They still communicate. They still connect. They still sound confident. You know why? Because fluency is not about being perfect. It is about being natural. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine this. You are in a cafe. You hear two native speakers talking. What do you expect to hear? Maybe something like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" "Oh, I am doing well." "Thank you, how about you?" But in real life, you hear, "Hey, what's up?" Not much." Just tired, kinda burned out, you know. No full sentences, no perfect structure. Just rhythm, flow, and feeling. That is when I realized I was chasing the wrong goal. I was trying to sound correct, but they were just trying to sound human. Let me give you an example. Once I corrected a native speaker. They said, "There's too many people in here." I said, do you mean there are too many people?" They laughed and said, "Yeah, I guess, but who cares?" At first, I was shocked. But then I laughed too. Because they were right. People do not speak English like grammar books. They speak like people. And if your goal is to sound like a real person, then you have to let go of this idea of speaking correctly all the time. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Jackson, if native speakers talk like that, then what are they really doing? How are they thinking? That question is important, because it is not about words. It is about how their brain works in real time. What happens inside their minds when they speak? Do they plan every sentence? Do they remember every rule? Do they even think about grammar at all? Spoiler, they do not. So in the next part, I am going to show you what really happens inside a native speaker's brain. It might just be the mindset shift you have been waiting for. I studied English for 10 years, but still sounded like a robot. Not because I was lazy, not because I lacked vocabulary, but because I was learning about English, not in it. I studied English for over 10 years. Books, flashcards, grammar apps, online courses, test after test after test. And you know what? I knew a lot. I could explain tenses. I could spell complicated words. I could even correct other people, but I could not speak. Not really, not the way I wanted to, not naturally, not freely, because everything I said felt rehearsed, like I was playing a role. Not living a language, just visiting it. Until one day something changed. It was small. I was brushing my teeth, and instead of thinking, "What's next?" or "breakfast time," in my native language, I caught myself thinking, "I will have breakfast after this." No translation, no delay. Just English, just there. It was quiet. But it was real. And that moment, that was the beginning of a completely different way of learning. I stopped trying to memorize English. I started trying to live in it. Let me explain. Most people treat English like a subject, like math, like history. Something to study, to master, to pass. But English is not a subject, it is a system of experience. It is how we exist, in conversation, in emotion, in memory, and that means, if you want to become fluent, you cannot just learn English. You have to start thinking in it. All day, in small moments, in boring moments. While washing dishes, while walking to the store, while choosing what shirt to wear. That is immersion. But wait, you might be thinking, "Jackson, I do not live in an English-speaking country. How am I supposed to immerse myself?" Let me tell you something. Immersion is not about geography. It is about mindset. You can live in London for 5 years and still not think in English. You can live in your hometown and train your brain to breathe in English. It is about tiny choices, repeated every day. Like this one. When you see a cup, do not think Kylie. Think cup. When you feel hungry, say it in English, even just in your mind. I am hungry. What should I eat? No one has to hear it, but you need to hear yourself, because that voice, The English voice inside your head. It is real. It is the beginning of fluency. Here is what I started doing. Every hour, I picked one small task and narrated it in English. I am opening the fridge. Where is the butter? Oh, it is behind the milk. Do not forget to take the keys. Not complicated. Not beautiful, just real. And slowly, my inner voice stopped translating. It just spoke. That is when things started to change. Speaking out loud felt easier. Thinking became quicker, and conversations felt more natural. Not because I was learning faster, but because I was no longer switching between two languages. I was living in one. So let me ask you, when you wake up tomorrow, what language will your first thought be in? And what would happen if you chose to make it English? If native speakers do not think in grammar, what do they actually think in? Let us break that down and see how you can train your brain to feel like theirs. Let me ask you something weird. Do you think native speakers plan their grammar before they talk? Like, okay, subject-verb agreement, past tense, use a phrasal verb here. Of course not. They do not build their sentences. They feel their sentences, and that was a big shift for me. Because for years I thought I needed to think in words, step by step, like I was solving a puzzle. But native speakers, they do not think, how do I say, Toño ban? They just feel the memory. And say, I miss you. It is automatic, not because they are smarter, but because they grew up responding to life in English, not translating it. That is what we need to copy, not the grammar, the reaction. You ever see someone spill coffee and before you think you just say, oh no? That is reaction. That is fluency, not perfect grammar. Just presence. So how do you train that? Let me tell you what I did. I started practicing with small emotional cues. If I saw a photo of a friend, I did not say, oh, mignonguine. I said, right away, I miss her. When it rained, I did not think, Troy Muaroy. I said out loud, it is raining again. Great. Simple. Emotional, reactive, no translation. And over time, those reactions got faster. Because my brain was no longer searching for the correct word. It was just feeling something and letting the English come out. You know what else helped? Mimicking native speech patterns. Not just words, but sounds, tones, expressions. Let me give you an example. Say this sentence. Are you serious? Now say it 3 ways. Excited, annoyed, confused. Same sentence, different emotion. That is how native speakers think. They are not searching for synonyms. They are tuning into feelings. They speak the way music moves, not the way grammar rules say. So here is a simple way to practice. Start talking to yourself in emotional reactions, not just correct phrases. Say what you feel. Ugh, I am tired. This is so cool. Oh man, not again. Seriously? Say them throughout your day. React in English, even if no one hears you. Because when English becomes the language of your feelings, it becomes the language you live in. Let me ask you, when something good happens today, what will you say? Will your first reaction be in your native language or in English? Think about that, because that little shift from thinking words to feeling reactions, that is how native speakers speak, and now you can too. But if reacting in English is so natural, why do so many learners still freeze? Let us talk about the hidden trap, translation, and why it is holding you back more than you think. Let me paint you a picture. You are in a conversation. Someone asks you a simple question in English. So what do? Your brain understands it. Totally. But before you speak, something happens. You translate their question into your native language. You think of your answer, also in your native language. Then you try to turn that into English. Then you try to say it. And by the time your mouth opens, boom, awkward silence. The moment is gone. You feel embarrassed. And worst of all, you tell yourself, I knew what to say. Why did I freeze? I have been there. Many times. And here is the truth I had to face. Every time you translate in your head, you take a step away from fluency. Because translation is not fast, it is not natural. And in real life, speed matters. Conversation is like a dance, and if you are always a few beats late, you will never feel confident on the floor. Now let me be clear. Translation is not evil. It helps at the beginning. It is a bridge, but at some point, you have to cross that bridge and leave it behind. Because here is what happens when you rely on translation for too long. You hesitate. You lose emotional tone. Your sentences sound forced. You are constantly checking yourself. And you never feel free. I remember once, I was ordering food. The waiter asked, "For here or to go?" Simple, right? But I had never heard that phrase before, so I froze. In my head, I was trying to figure it out. "Oh, day. Hey, Mangdi. Wait, how do I say that?" I panicked. I smiled and just pointed. And when I walked away, I felt so small. Not because I did not know English, but because I could not respond fast enough. All because I was stuck in the middle, translating instead of reacting. You ever had a moment like that? Where you understood, but could not answer fast enough? That is the trap. Because translation creates a delay. And delay kills confidence. Let me tell you something I wish someone told me earlier. The goal is not to understand English and then say it. The goal is to experience English and react in it. Just like you do in your first language. When someone says, "I love you," do you pause and translate before answering? No. You feel it, you react. That is fluency. And that is why thinking in English is not just a skill. It is a decision. So let me ask you, are you still translating every sentence in your head? Do you hear English and then wait for your native language to approve your answer? If yes, you are not alone. But it is time to change that. Because in the next part, I will show you exactly how I broke the habit of silent translation. It started with one sentence. I printed it. I taped it to my wall, and I repeated it every day. Let me show you the sentence that changed everything. And the simple daily practice that helped me stop translating and start thinking in English. One sentence changed everything for me. I wrote it on a piece of paper, taped it to the wall above my desk, above my bed, even on my bathroom mirror. That sentence, think, do not translate. Simple, right? But it was a daily reminder. A small, powerful challenge. Every time I looked at it, I asked myself, are you thinking in English right now? Or are you translating again? And that question kept me honest. Because breaking the translation habit is not about magic. It is about repetition. Deliberate, intentional, every single day. So here is what I did. I created a mini practice I called Look, Speak, No Pause. I would walk around my house, look at anything, a cup, a spoon, a bag, a light switch, and I would say what I saw. In English, immediately, no thinking. No checking the right word, just say it. This is my coffee cup. The water is boiling. I left my phone in the kitchen. At first, it felt clumsy. My mouth moved slower than my mind. Sometimes I made mistakes, but I did not correct myself. I just kept going, because the goal was not perfection. The goal was reflex. Just like when you see a door and reach for it. No thinking, no translation. Just action. That is how I wanted my English to work, and slowly, it did. I remember one morning, I woke up, opened the curtains, and without realizing it, I said, "Wow, it is really cloudy today." No script, no thought. Just reaction. And that was the moment I smiled. Because that sentence, that was mine, not from a book, not copied from a podcast. It came from my own life, in real time. That is when I knew the sentence on the wall had done its job. Think. Do not translate. It had become part of me. So let me ask you, what would happen if you lived one day, just one, thinking only in English? Even just for 5 minutes each hour, even just at home, even just with simple thoughts. Could you do it? Would you try? Because the moment you start training your brain to react in English, even in boring moments, you are no longer studying the language. You are living inside it. Here is something you can try right now. Step 1. Pick 3 objects near you. Step 2. Say something about each one, in English, with 0 preparation. Even just, "This is a pen. My shoes are old. I do not like this chair." Step 3. Say it again, but faster, with feeling. Like you are telling someone about it. And repeat that every day. 10 seconds here. 30 seconds there. That is how real fluency starts. Not in your mouth. In your brain and in your habit. Because thinking in English is not a talent. It is a choice you make every hour, so choose it, today. But thinking fast is not enough. What if your words are correct, but still feel empty? Let me show you how I went from speaking correctly to speaking honestly. Let me tell you something that might sound strange. There was a time I said all the right words, but still felt like I was lying, not because I wanted to, but because my sentences were perfect and empty. Like this. I am fine, thank you. And you? My hobbies include reading, listening to music, and traveling. It is sunny today. All technically correct. All completely forgettable. You know why? Because they were safe. And safe English is not real English. Real English is messy. It is emotional. It is human, and that means, sometimes, it is not correct, but it is honest. I remember a moment that changed everything. I was speaking with a friend. She asked how I was feeling that day. I almost gave her the usual answer. I am good. Just a little tired. But instead I paused, and I said, I feel heavy today, like my brain is too full. Was it grammatically perfect? Maybe not, but it was real. And you know what she said? She smiled and said, Wow, I know exactly what you mean. Connection. That was the word I had been missing all along. Fluency is not about getting it right. Fluency is about getting it across. You can say everything correctly and still feel distant. Or you can say something true, even if it is imperfect, and people will feel it. Here is what I realized. People do not remember perfect grammar. They remember how you made them feel. So I started changing the way I practiced English. Instead of asking, is this sentence right? I started asking, is this sentence me? If I felt sad, I said, today is hard. If I felt proud, I said, I finished something, I am proud. If I felt angry, I said, I hate this traffic. I want to scream, even if it was clumsy, even if it was raw, because emotion is more important than accuracy. And the funny thing is, the more I spoke honestly, the more natural my English became, because I was no longer building sentences from grammar. I was building them from life. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you said something in English, and it felt real? Not just correct, but real. If it has been a while, or maybe never, then today is the perfect day to start. Speak like you, even in English, especially in English. Say something you feel, not something you memorized, because when your English becomes honest, people listen. And more importantly, you believe yourself. You do not need a classroom to build that kind of fluency. Let me show you how I turned my home, my kitchen, my mirror, even my laundry, into the most powerful language school I ever had. You want to know where I built my real English fluency? Not in a classroom, not in an online course. Not in a study group with notebooks and coffee. I built it in my kitchen, seriously. My fridge, my stove, the sink. The drawer full of random plastic containers. That was my school. Let me explain. There was a time when I believed I needed the perfect environment to learn. A teacher, a native speaker, a desk, a plan. But life did not give me those things. So I gave myself something else, permission to practice where I was. That is how it started. I would open the fridge and say, "What do we have today? Milk, eggs, too much cheese. I need to clean this shelf." Then I would cook and talk through everything. Boil the water, cut the garlic, do not burn the onions again. At first it felt weird. Talking to myself, saying things I already knew, but over time those sentences became smoother. Faster, automatic, because I was building muscle memory, not in my hands, but in my mind. And guess what? The kitchen became my training ground. The bathroom mirror became my speaking partner. The living room became my conversation zone. Anywhere I was became English space. I made a rule. If I am alone, I speak out loud in English, even if it was just one line. Even if I was brushing my teeth and mumbling, "I should floss more often," it counted. And the results? They were shocking. One day I was in a real conversation, and a sentence came out of my mouth without effort, no pause, no planning. Just flow. And in my head, I thought, whoa, that sounded like me. That is when I realized something huge. Fluency grows where you use English, not just where you study it. If your mouth only opens during class, then real life will always feel like a test. But if your mouth opens while making coffee, washing dishes, looking in the mirror, then real life becomes practice. Here is a tiny routine I still use today. Morning. Speak your first thought out loud. I slept well. I do not want to get up. Where is my phone? Afternoon. Describe one object near you. This pen is dying. The light is too bright. Evening. Reflect. Out loud. Today was stressful. I did not finish my to-do list. I am proud I spoke more English. And if you want to go further, record it. Use your phone. Voice memo. No filter, no editing. Just you. Because when you listen back, you will hear something powerful. Not perfect English, but growing English. Living English. And that is the English that stays with you. So let me ask you, what room are you in right now? And what could you say, right now, out loud in English? Try it. Say it. Whisper it if you want. That is fluency. It is not a performance. It is a practice, and it starts exactly where you are. Why do native speakers learn without translating? Let us break down how they see the world, and how you can train your brain the same way, starting today. You ever wonder why native speakers do not freeze when they speak? They do not stop. They do not translate, they just respond. Why is that? Because they do not think in rules. They think in pictures, in sensations, in reactions. Let me show you how that works. Imagine a little kid. They see a dog for the first time. They point. Someone smiles and says, "Dog." The child is not memorizing. They are experiencing. The word dog is not connected to another word. It is connected to the sound, the fur, the tail, the excitement. It is alive. That is why native speakers do not need to translate. The word and the meaning exist as one. Pattern interrupt. Let us try something right now. Look around. Pick any object near you. Say it in English. Now say how it makes you feel. Phone. Busy. Window. Bright. Chair. Comfortable. Did you translate? No, you just responded. That is the key. Fluency is not built on definitions. It is built on direct connection. This changed everything for me. I stopped learning from word lists. Instead, I built my English around what I could see, touch, feel. For example, rain. I did not try to memorize it. I walked to the window. I watched the sky. I heard the drops. I felt the stillness. And I said, "It is raining." That sentence lived in me, not in a notebook, in my body. That is how you start thinking in English, naturally, emotionally, automatically. Let me give you a practical challenge. Right now, pick 5 objects around you. Look at each one, say its name, then say one sentence about it. Lamp, it is too bright. Notebook, I never finished it. Curtain, I love how it moves. No overthinking, no checking grammar, just respond. And then do the same tomorrow, and the day after that. Because the more you connect English to your senses, the more you will stop relying on your first language to approve what you say. This is how native speakers grow, and it is exactly how you can grow too. Open loop. Now you might be thinking, this sounds great, but how do I turn it into a daily habit? Good question. Because knowledge is nothing without consistency. So in the next part, I will show you how I created a 5-minute daily routine that locked this mindset in place. No apps. No tutors, just me and my brain. You ever feel like you will never truly think in English because you do not live in an English-speaking country? Like you are stuck, surrounded by your native language, trying to swim in English but always pulled back to shore? I used to believe that too, until I realized something that changed my entire approach. You do not need to move abroad to think like a native. You just need to build a native environment inside your mind, and that is exactly what I did. Pattern interrupt. Let me ask you something. What is the first thing you hear when you wake up? An alarm in your language? Your family speaking? Your thoughts? In your mother tongue? What if you changed that? What if your day started in English? That is what I decided to try. I began with something small. Every morning I played one short English audio clip, a podcast, a story, a scene from a show I liked. I did not try to understand every word. I just let the sound wash over me. Then I would say one sentence out loud. Anything. Let us start the day. I need coffee. What is the plan today? It was like tuning my brain to a new frequency, and slowly, my thoughts followed. Instead of waiting for the right environment, I created one. Let me give you a clear example. Native speakers think in rhythms. They do not say, I am going to the store, period. Next sentence. They talk like music, rising and falling, with flow, with energy. So I started mimicking that. I would repeat after short sentences I heard in real shows. What are you doing? Seriously? Come on, you got this. I was not just learning the words. I was copying the feeling, and guess what? After a while, I stopped needing the subtitles. Not because my vocabulary was perfect, but because I could feel the meaning through tone and rhythm. That is what immersion really is. Not moving to another country, but moving your attention into English, hour by hour. So here is what I suggest. Start building your English environment in layers. Step 1. Sound. Fill your space with English sounds, not just songs, but voices, stories, background podcasts. Step 2. Thought. Narrate your daily actions in English, out loud or in your head. Let us clean this mess. Where did I put my keys? I am not ready for this meeting. Step 3. Emotion. React in English. Get excited. Get annoyed. Yes. No way. Ugh. Not again. Because native-level fluency is not about location. It is about reaction. Open loop. Now you might be wondering, how do you measure your progress if you are not studying grammar or passing tests? Great question. Because in the next part, we are going to explore one of the most powerful and most ignored the skills in thinking like a native: sound, intonation. Rhythm, the things no textbook teaches you, but every fluent speaker feels. Have you ever listened to a native speaker and understood none of the words, but still knew exactly what they meant? Like they said something fast or soft or with a weird rhythm, and somehow you just got it? That is not magic. That is intonation. rhythm, stress, tone. And it might be the most powerful part of fluency, but the least talked about. Because textbooks teach you what to say, but real conversations, they teach you how it sounds when someone feels it. Pattern interrupt. Let us try something right now. Say this sentence out loud. You are going. Sounds simple, right? Now say it again, like you are angry. You are going. Now say it like a joke. You are going. Now say it like you are sad. Like you are trying to convince someone not to leave. You are going, same words, completely different meaning. This is what native speakers grow up doing, without ever studying it. They do not memorize tone, they just absorb it. Feel it, react with it. And if you want to think in English, not just translate, you need to train your ear. That is what I started doing, every single day. I stopped listening for words. I started listening for emotion. I would take one line from a movie, a short one, and I would repeat it, not word for word, but beat for beat. I do not know what to say. I do not know what to say. I do not know what to say. Each version tells a different story, and I practiced them all. At first I sounded fake, like I was copying, because I was copying. But that is how music students learn too. They imitate, they echo. Until one day, it becomes their own sound. Same thing here. Let me show you a fun way to practice this right now. Step 1. Find a short English clip, 5 to 10 seconds. Something with clear emotion, a joke, a whisper. A dramatic moment. Step 2. Play it, pause it. Mimic everything. The rhythm, the pause, the rise and fall. Not just the words, the energy. Step 3. Do it again and again, until you feel it in your breath. Because when your ears and voice begin to move together, that is when fluency starts to sound natural. And by the way, this has a secret benefit too. When you copy intonation, you stop overthinking grammar. You stop translating. You just say it like it is meant to be said, and suddenly, people understand you better, and you understand them better, even when you miss a few words. Open loop. But here is the twist. What if I told you that knowing more words can actually make things worse? Yeah, that is what we are talking about next. Because in the next part, we are diving into a trap that many good students fall into, including me. How knowing too many words can make you freeze, and how to fix it. You ever feel like the more vocabulary you learn, the harder it gets to speak? Like your brain is full, but your mouth says nothing. Ironic, right? You work harder, you study more. And suddenly, you freeze even faster. That was me. I was the good student. I knew hundreds of words. Passed tests, aced exams. I had notebooks full of advanced expressions. But in real conversations, I blanked. Pattern interrupt. Let me give you a painful example. One time someone asked me, "What do you do for fun?" Simple question. But instead of just saying, "I like reading," my brain panicked. It started flipping through all the options. Enjoy? Am passionate about? Have a strong interest in? And while I was searching for the perfect sentence, the conversation moved on without me. Boom. Silence. Missed moment. And that is when I realized something important. Fluency is not about how many words you know. It is about how fast you can use the few words that matter. Think about native speakers. They use the same core words over and over again. Get, go, do, make, feel. But they use them with tone, context, emotion. Meanwhile, language learners chase big, fancy words and forget how to connect. Let me ask you, when you want to say something simple, do you stop and try to sound smarter? Do you freeze because you are afraid your words are too basic? If yes, then let this truth set you free. Simple is powerful. Real is memorable. You do not need to say, I have a deep affinity for literature. Just say, I love books. You do not need to say, the climate today is rather unpleasant. Just say, it is too hot. And here is the best part. When you speak simply, you stop overthinking, you stop analyzing, you start feeling the conversation. And that is when your true voice comes out. So here is what I started doing. I picked 50 words I used every day in my own life. Not fancy words, just me words. I practiced them in different sentences. Not to memorize, but to internalize, I made them part of my emotional toolbox. I get tired. I feel better. I do not like this. I am not sure. Over and over again. Until they were mine. Not academic, not robotic. Just mine. And slowly, speaking became easier, faster. More real, because I was no longer trying to impress, I was just trying to express. Open loop. So now the big question is, how do you build that kind of fluency daily? Without going back to boring study routines, how do you train your brain to think like a native in just minutes a day? That is exactly what we are diving into next. I will show you 5 daily habits that rewired my brain, and they will work for you too. What if I told you, the way you start your day can decide how fluent your English feels all day long, not your grammar level? Not your vocabulary size, just your habits. That is what changed everything for me. I did not move abroad. I did not hire a tutor. I did not buy a fancy course. I just changed 5 minutes in the morning, and my brain started thinking in English, almost automatically. Pattern interrupt. Let us start simple. What is the first thing you say when you wake up? For me, it used to be nothing, just scrolling. Checking notifications, letting the day hit me. Now. I wake up, sit up, and say, in English, okay. Let us start the day. What is first? It is small, but it tells my brain this day belongs to English. From that moment on, my thoughts are primed. Here is what I do next. Habit 1. One sentence out loud. Every morning, no matter what, say one real sentence about how you feel. I slept well. I feel stressed. I want to skip work today. Not textbook English, your English. Habit 2. Record your voice for 30 seconds. Talk about anything, what you dreamed about, what you are planning, what you are avoiding. Then, listen back, not to judge. Just to hear your rhythm. This builds self-awareness and confidence. Habit 3. Imitate a native voice. Pick one short clip, TV show, podcast, YouTube, anything. Play. Pause. Mimic the tone, not the words. The emotion. Let your mouth follow someone else's rhythm until it starts becoming your own. Habit 4. Shadow your day. As you move through your day, speak quietly to yourself. I need more coffee. This bus is late again. I have no idea what I am doing. It feels silly, until it becomes second nature. Habit 5. Use one new phrase with emotion. Find one phrase that feels real, and say it like you mean it. You have got to be kidding me. I love this. I cannot believe I said that. Say it 3 times. Different tones, different moods. Let it live in your voice. And here is the key. None of this takes more than 5 minutes. But it works. Because it builds consistency. It turns studying into living in the language. You are no longer waiting for fluency. You are practicing it every time you breathe out a thought. Open loop. Now you might be thinking, this is great, Jackson. But what if I still make mistakes? What if I mess it up in front of someone else? That fear, that pressure. It is what we are tackling next. Because fluency is not about getting it right. It is about letting go and finally giving yourself permission to be human. You know what no one tells you? Even native speakers were once bad at English. Yeah. That is right. Every fluent person you have ever heard, the actors, the podcast hosts, the YouTubers, they all started with broken sentences, with weird pauses, with baby talk. But here is the difference. They were never ashamed of it. That is the part we forget. As language learners, we are taught that mistakes are embarrassing, that fluency means flawless, that if you speak incorrectly, people will judge you. So what do? We wait. We hide. We prepare forever and say nothing. Pattern interrupt. But let me ask you something real. Have you ever judged a baby for saying, "Me want food"? Of course not. You smiled, you encouraged, you understood. So why are you so hard on yourself when you say something wrong in English? Here is the truth. No one was born fluent. Fluency is earned through failure. I remember one of the first times I tried to have a full conversation in English. I was nervous. I planned all my answers. But 5 minutes in, someone asked me something unexpected, and my brain just gave up. I said, "Yes, but not really. I think, maybe." What? And you know what happened? We laughed. They understood I was trying. They waited, and I kept going. That moment taught me something huge. People do not need you to be perfect. They need you to be present. So I stopped chasing native level and started chasing real connection. You know what changed? Everything. My fear faded. My sentences got shorter. But stronger, because I was no longer building a performance. I was building trust with myself and with others. Let me tell you something that might free you. You do not need to speak like a native. You need to speak like you, in English. That means you will forget words. You will say weird things. You will laugh at your own awkward sentences, and that is beautiful, because that is how every native speaker got there too. They just did it younger, when no one expected perfection, but now you have the same right. To speak, to fail, to grow. So here is what I want you to remember. Fluency is not something you reach. It is something you practice, while being kind to yourself. Open loop. Now, in the final part of this video, we are going to bring it all together. One moment, one sentence spoken from the heart, without fear, without translation. Because fluency starts now, let me say this clearly, you will never feel ready. Not 100%, not perfectly, but you can start. Today, with just one sentence, and that is everything. Because fluency does not begin with knowing all the rules. It begins with the moment you stop waiting and you finally speak. Pattern interrupt. So let me ask you right now, what are you feeling? Not what you should say, not what sounds advanced, just what is true. Is it, "I feel tired. I am proud of myself. I am scared to speak, but I am here"? Say it. Out loud, right now, even if you are whispering. Even if no one hears you, say it for you, because this is not about performance. It is about permission, permission to be messy, to be emotional, to be in the moment. Here is what I want you to do. Right after this video ends, take a deep breath. Look around you, notice one small thing, and say one sentence in English. It can be about what you see, what you feel, what you remember, what you want. But say it without thinking in your first language. Do not translate. Do not overanalyze. Just let it come out. This is your first step into real fluency, not in theory, but in action. Now, if you are ready to go further, here is your challenge. Comment one real sentence in English that you felt today. It does not have to be impressive. It just has to be honest. I do not know what I am doing. I want to keep learning. I feel hopeful. I need help. I like this moment. Whatever it is, write it. Because when you write it, you own it. You become the kind of person who speaks English without apology. And finally, let me ask you, what language are you choosing to think in today? Because that is a choice you get to make. Every hour, every sentence, every time your brain says, "Wait, should I say this?" Say it anyway. Say it now. You are ready, not because you are perfect, but because you are present. And that, my friend, is how you begin to think in English. See you in the next story. Jackson.